The personal views expressed by our podcast guests are their own and are not legal advice or official statements by their organizations. Hello, my name is Debbie Reynolds. They call me the Data Diva. This is the Data Diva Talks Privacy podcast, where we discuss data privacy issues with industry leaders around the world with information that businesses need to know now. I have a very special guest all the way from Japan, Kohei Kurihara. He is the CEO and founder of Privacy by Design Lab. Welcome.
Yeah, good to be here. Thank you for inviting me, Debbie. That was really awesome.
Oh, yes. Well, we've been connected for many years, I would
Yeah.
say. And we've crossed paths many times because sometimes I end up doing different knowledge nets and things
Mm,
and in Asia or APAC countries. And you're very wise. I know we had talked many years ago, I think before you even started your company. So
yeah,
I
yeah,
think it's really
probably.
cool. I think it's really cool that you actually started this company. But I would love to have you tell everyone about your journey, how you got into privacy and how you became the CEO and founder of Privacy by Design Labs.
Yeah, thank you for the little introduction of myself. Hi, everyone. My name is Kohei Kurihara. I'm running the Privacy Management Lab, which is the non-government organization based in Japan, in Tokyo. So, explain about a little bit my background history. I started my first company in 2014, which is my turning point in my career. That's because I was being intrigued in my own friends who's coming from overseas to give ideas, to give a concept, to create a new wave of the involvement of the startup scene. So we started of the new businesses of the crowdfunding platform for content creators, especially for the manga or animations, which is becoming popular in other countries, as like in Asian regions, is in really promising the market. So we decided within the team to establish the new services for them. Unfortunately, the startup scene it has always been a very like the hard time they always it's not easy to be sustaining these services, so we decided to shut down once. Then I'm started to work on my own company at the times. So I was very lucky to encounter a lot of my friends from overseas. They always told me that like new technology is like the new innovation is very important for the startup scenes. And I was lucky to give him the message from the one American founders who works on the blockchain and government technology. So I was accepted his invitations to become leaders of the community building here in Japan, especially for the blockchain and government. So that's my second turning point to involve of the like global themes. So since the become the of these roles, I'm very interested in blockchain technology itself. Then I met with my former co-founders to establish the new companies, and which is the focusing on the digital identity and the blockchain. It was very interesting. The blockchain technology can be more secure than protected of the data processing, in addition to the authentication processes, which may be one of the key issues in the security models. So that was I was always been exploring the new things through these startups, and I spent almost 2 years there. I discovered more important trend, which is privacy and data protections. Because the blockchain community and engineering, especially, they are not talking about the data itself. They always talking about the tech. But for the considering of the social implementation, it is very important to mix of integrities of the data and the technology. So that's why I'm started my new journeys to visit UNESCO that time and came back to Japan and started the new company, so which is the Privacy by Design Lab. Through that, I'm trying to work with the global experts to be connected and the discussion and having a dialogue together, what we can do for the futures, even though the tech is growing up, but we should balancing of the societal norms. So that's my commitment to start of the Privacy by Design Lab. I'm quite so interested in the collaborations, innovation, the privacy. So that's my brief history.
That's an excellent history. I didn't know that you had that background in like blockchain and digital identity. Actually,
Hmm.
I've always thought that blockchain technology is very uh
Yeah.
excellent thing to use for identity. So I'm happy to see that you're in that area. The question I have, this is really interesting. So when you said that you had pivoted from the identity blockchain to privacy by design, in my mind, I can see how you made that transition. But I think sometimes when people think about blockchain and identity and stuff like that, they do think that tech solves for privacy if you have security, and it does not work that way. So
Hmm.
I always say, and I want your thoughts, I always say security is like having a key to a door,
Hmm.
and privacy is like having a deed to a house, right? So
Hmm.
privacy about is a right of someone, and a key to a door would probably be helpful, but that
Hmm.
doesn't cover the types of protection that you need. But I want your thoughts about how like the security side is different than the privacy side for you.
Yeah, I think it's quite an interesting topic. So in this week, I had a interesting conversation with my friends, with my colleagues. So what's the difference of the safety and trust, right? In case of the safety, the people tends to talk about the like kind of the system framework or standardization. So that's a kind of more systematic dialogues. But in terms of the trust, maybe it's a different the directions. That means once you need to make a trust, the system does not fulfill the all the perceptions of what the people think about the trust, right? In some cases, the people tend to believes who might be like good relationship, right? In case of the human trust, which means like you and me, we've been trusted each other. That's why that we have to build a relationship. So that's not easy to describe what does it means. But in case of the safety, it can easy to identify the framework is, what the standard is, that we can be sure. So that's a very interesting topic. So maybe the identity is also very similar in case of the identity community who involves in the security parts, they always talk about what the standardization, what the systematic approach, what like a disclosure system, authentication. Of course, it's important to prove this system might be the safety, but in case of the trust, has to be the more diverse, more human centric, right? So that's quite a so different objective. So we have to be integrities of these different contexts to prove what does it mean in each other. Your ideas of the like the house concept is quite so interesting, and we should talk the different type of the people, like in terms of this kind of the like concept together.
That's fascinating. Thank you for that. I want your thoughts about, you mentioned trust, and trust is very important. And I thought what you said was spot on, which is trust is about the perception that a
Hmm.
person has about a company, how they handle their data. And so sometimes I feel like companies feel like they have done something extraordinary if all they've done is just follow the law, right? And so the law is like the base, like the bottom, like the lowest level that you can be, right? And so I think companies are starting to see that they have to do more than that to gain
Hmm.
someone's trust because they expect just basically that you're going to follow the law, right? They don't think that you're going to not follow the law. So just following the law is not enough to earn someone's trust. You do have to do these other extra things, and it's something that companies need to embed within the culture of their
Mhm.
company. I love the fact that you named your company Privacy by Design Labs because I feel like and I want your thoughts. I feel like sometimes when companies also confuse security with privacy, sometimes people think about security as like a reactive thing, where privacy, I think, if you do it well, is very proactive. So, thinking about privacy at the design phase is what companies that are most successful think about privacy at design phase. They don't think about it as an afterthought. But I want your thoughts there.
Yeah, absolutely. Then I always been talking with the Dr. Kabukin, as she's the creator of the privacy by design. She's always been said that privacy by design is quite so interesting a context that she has been created because she always said that privacy is freedom. The freedom is a choice to not just only for the users but also the company as well. So that's quite significant to consider of the proactive approach. It's does not a compromise of the security purposes just because the proactive means the companies or enterprises or any kind of the integrities that wants to start then positively, right? And the reactive means it's a negative actions. So in that case, is the company is trying to comply after the law is coming, right? In case of we had to start the privacy law, we have to comply it. It's a very reactive approach, but the proactive approach is to creating the market, creating innovations. It's kind of very positive. So we have to change the mindset. It's not to be reactive. We should have created the new actions before something is coming. That's a very important to create innovations. So it's very important to have the different mindset of the reactive things so if the companies has the to advocating them that this kind of action, so we don't have to pay attention to the privacy, right? Every company is in a mindset of the proactive, so nobody don't care about it. So that's very significant. And as I mentioned, the trust is very key because trust is a relationship with the market, with the consumers, with the users, with the stakeholders. So that's quite important. Every stakeholders has to be proactively to work on this moment. So the privacy by design is not the solution, is the approach to involve the different stakeholders to work on it proactively. It's not reactive. So that's a very important message. I'm always receiving it from Dr. Kabukin. So that's our organization is working with the different stakeholders involving and making a dialogue. So that's a part of the stories to create out the new movement together.
That's tremendous. I agree with that. And yeah, she has been on our show as well. So I'm very much a fan of her. Hey, so one thing that I hear a lot, and I want your thoughts, is that if we focus on privacy, somehow that's going to slow down innovation.
Mhm.
And I feel like companies that take it seriously, it actually speeds up innovation. But I want your thoughts from your point of view.
Yeah, I think the innovation is not always to uh, harming the people, right? In the case of the innovation is the usefulness for the user's society. Otherwise, innovation does not happen. So going back to some of the innovation in our past society, we have a lot of things just like automobiles, lights, airplanes, a lot of innovation is coming. Of course, this innovation is the going up once, then it change in a step by step in case of any kind of the harms that happens. So that's very important. When we got started the new innovation, just like in AI today, it's a very big booms, but it's a turning to shift not just to portion of the heavy growth, it's a portion of the societal integrities. So that's very significant. So always we have to be embrace the mindset. Innovation is always to balancing of the highly growth, better society integrations. Otherwise, innovation is nothing that happens. So that's very important to be acceptable approach. So the trust is the key to making a dialogue with the society, the users, the different stakeholders to receive the innovation is societal actions. I think it's in a turning point right now, not just like expectation. It's a kind of the contribution to the society, how these new innovative technology. Of course, I was in blockchain space. The blockchain was a boom in 2018, 2020. But the thing that happened, some of the collapse of some of the tech was not perfect. To some people, it's a loss of the money the actually the it's not a well works in the society. So that's very important to balances of the trust and the innovation.
That's true. And I think when people say that privacy gets in the way or slows down innovation, I always say, who are you innovating for? You're innovating for people. And so if you're doing something in innovation that harms people or harms their trust in what you're doing, then who are you innovating for? Like, what is the purpose? So that human centric idea is really key, I believe. Tell me a little bit about Japan. Tell me a bit about privacy in Asia Pacific. A lot of as you know, if we're on LinkedIn and different discussions that we have, a lot of talk is about what's happening in the US and what's happening in Europe. And we don't get enough viewpoints from different other jurisdictions. But give me your feel for people who may not know or understand what is the culture in Japan, what is the ethos or the feeling around the importance of privacy, and how does that play into the way that you think about it?
Yeah, that's very important questions. So through my experiences, talking with my own friends in the different countries, the Western friends and then Japanese or Asian folks, I feel it's quite a different the context of the establishment of privacy because the example in Europe has been a very long history of the human rights, the fundamental rights, even a talking maybe more than the generation years ago. But here in Japan, the first privacy dialogue has been started after World War II, and it's a very famously, and then we talk in like after banquet, which is the famous. Maybe it's very similar. It's a kind of the journalism issues here. So we had a story. It's not so long history. It's a bit of the new because it's a privacy is a bit of the context importing from the Western country. So, but more than the privacy, you have to go back to the Japanese cultures, the Japanese structure, the society. It's a bit of the different. Of course, it's a very similar to the Eastern Asian countries. So, like in Korea and in China, we tended to cherish all your families, your pedigrees, and how the cross relationship works. If we build a good relationship, good trust with the folks and friends, we share as much as we can, right? So that's no borders for the privacy. That's very interesting. So what I want to say is the kind of the cultures of individualism and like this kind of the family-based concept is a different context. Even we talk about the privacy. Of course, the internet is that makes us more connected, that makes us possible to the seamless of this concept. But still, we have the like indigenous context in each culture. So that's very important to know what's the difference, what's the cultural difference. So how does it impact to the context of privacy? And of course, it's also the same in different Asian countries. So Eastern Asia even Eastern Asia, like in China, in South Korea, and in Japan, has a different history and that established. And even though here in Japan is also the North and South is different. So that's quite a so interesting talk. So what's the difference? So we have to compare first, not just only talking about the law. also that we have to talk about the cultures. So that's direct to the impact of the privacy norms in each states and how the people is claiming of the privacy. Actually, the Japanese people does not talking about the privacy because the privacy has been a very conservative. It's been more negative words. In case of the like, you insist on the privacy to your family. We're family. Why? Is a need of privacy, right? So in the generation, just like the young generation, the twenties or teens is also the different type of the context of privacy. So that's very complex. This we have to think about the difference is not the remain in the like country level. It's also the remains of the generation gaps. So that's the we have the very complex of the matrix and how it works. So that's my feeling the through the dialogues the different type of the people here.
That's fascinating that you say that. What you said is very important, and I think a lot of people don't think about it. So, what you said about the idea of privacy or societal things, especially in Western culture, is very much about individualism, not really around what's good for the a community, quote unquote, or the society. And I actually noticed that in my travels to different places, how it's like
Mm,
very different. Like people will do things not because, they know you, because they just think it's the best thing for the community that they would do this thing. And so we don't really get that there. But I think that those things do show up in laws and in culture. And I think it's very important that people don't think about privacy the same. So I can't come to Japan and have my own US Western concept and try to force it on you. And that's why I think it's really important to understand those cultural differences. Yeah. Very cool. What's happening in the world today in privacy or technology that's concerning you most?
From this years, I'm becoming interested in parts of the new norms of the privacy because in the national relationship is becoming a change so far before the last year. I guess here in Asian country it is also the becoming is so complicated the relationship each other. Actually, we are some relations between the nation to nation level. So, which is just originally a new kind of trend. I mean, the national security is the one of the typical issues, typical matters in each regions, and how these countries can cooperate together to share the same value of the privacy. So that's the one thing I'm very interested in that. Consciously, I speak the national security, the privacy is the one of the very important topics. For example, in some countries, is a battle right now, and the using of the high tech, just like drone or military defense, or these kind of physical actions, such as the automobile vehicles or IoT devices and robotics. So maybe it's a next generation of innovation. So these things this has to be integrated of the privacy context. Otherwise, like our life has been always been intrusive by the specific innovation. So that's not been permissive. So we should make an actions if these kind of the new physical technology come into our life, then how we can survive on the privacy is remaining. So that's a very important topics. So that's I'm trying to work on this context and how we can protect the privacy in the tech and innovations in the national security purposes. So that's a new trend, and also it's very important to cooperate with a different country and how we can create better innovations to protect their life. So we should work together as a starting up, and that's a very my curiosity is how it works.
Hmm, that's fascinating. I had a conversation with someone from Rwanda, Africa, recently, and we were talking about privacy, data protection in Africa. And one of the things that he brought up, and I want your thoughts here, you're the perfect person to ask this question.
Mhm.
And we were talking about the idea, just like the EU has adequacy. So in order to transfer data, what's the word, conform to the norms of what the EU wants to be able to get adequacy. And then he was talking about moving away from adequacy to thinking about data sharing in frameworks where in his thought, it was very funny when we said it was adequacy is like a velvet rope, like it's a secret club that you have to get into, where frameworks are more like, and I want your thoughts about the Asia Pacific privacy
Mhm.
framework. It's like we are not the same and our laws are different, but when we exchange data, there are certain norms that we want to align with in order to do business with each other. And to me, I think that's probably the perfect way to do a lot of these data transfers because it's like we're not every country, just like you said, we have a different history, we have different culture, we have different things that we think are important within our society. So there's like no way that we're going to be the same, right, in terms of privacy. So if we think about privacy and data sharing in a framework capacity, we're saying, okay, this is what we want to do, and then this is how we can align so that we're not abusing the rights of people in other places. But I want your thoughts.
Yeah, actually, the you pointed out the very significant issues right now. We had a talk with some guys that was involved the data transfer mechanism, just like CBPR, which is to become global. But the issues remains how the cooperative approach in the different countries, whether they included the enforcement or maybe just kind of new trend. Of course, we should have some challenges in a different level of the resource, the hectics, then how we can overcome it. That's also the issues. And also the political barriers, even Asian country has a different type of the processes of elections, of the like the how the politician is going to make a relationship with the country. So these are very important, not just talking about the privacy, but also the rule-making processes as well, right? Even the EU just gonna discuss how to protect still remaining the GDPR or change the more simplifications. I don't know how the directions, maybe the directive impact adequacy as well. So the thing is quite so important. The privacy context is always changing, not just remaining one things. For example, like the back to the histories of before the internet, the privacy was not the mainstream. The privacy was very minority context, but now is everybody is using the internet. It's become the privacy is so serious. So these kind of the tech context that direct the impact of the data transfer discussion as well. So the businesses become the more complexities. Before the internet, we don't care about where the product is coming, but now it's been any kind of malware. It's been integrated so the IoT device, the smartphones, or any kind of the devices that you always use in your in the life. Then they can easy to track your actions, not just only for the browsing the internet, you were like the turning on your TV, so refrigerator, or like you were like taking a baths or any kind of everything is easy to watch. And also the location data might be collected through these physical devices as well. So that's not a talk. That's not a topic about the data transfer, your information to the third country. That's the important to consider sort of more broader context. How these services can be created, who's involved in a stakeholder. It's a supply chain issues. I think it's very tremendous in next decades of these devices can squeeze the more information by the integrating of the AI. That's unavoidable. That every consumer is been facing of the issues. In the cases that what that's been happens, we have to be imagine the we have to be like backcasting it how it works right now, how we should make it act right now. Of course, the data transfer issue is the one of the compliance actions, but this is also the issues of the supply chain. So that's why I point out the national security is the one of the linkage of the privacy in like few years later, in accordance with the surgeon of the topics of the like the barring of the different country right now.
I agree with that. I think as you were talking, I was thinking more about the difference between typical law and regulation and privacy by design. And I'm reminded that when the GDPR came out and they had put the principles of privacy by design in it, like a lot of legal folks I knew were extremely upset because privacy by design is the opposite of the way that they think about regulation. So they think regulation says this bad thing happened to Johnny, and so let's pass this law and don't do this because this bad thing will happen to you or something like that, right? Where privacy by design is saying if you are proactive in the way that you think about harm to people and respect their rights, then you can prevent or lower your risk downstream. And that's so different than looking backwards because that's kind of the way law is, in my view. Where you're like, okay, and what a lot of people, another thing that people didn't appreciate about the GDPR is that, for example, like purpose limitation. What they really wanted was someone to say, delete this data after 3 years. And they're like, well, that is too prescriptive, where we're saying, think about your purpose. And if you think about your purpose, that means you have to have a data strategy. And unfortunately, a lot of companies didn't have that. They were just doing whatever they wanted to do, and they never thought about a strategic view of privacy. And so when you're talking about privacy by design and figuring out how that weaves in, obviously there's a place for regulation, but regulation does not stop the harm. I don't think of regulation as a shield. Like you can't hold up a sheet of paper and have someone stop abuse my privacy because I have a sheet of paper, right? That's written for a law. So thinking about it in terms of design, I think is the right approach. But what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think the regulation is very important to pave the guardrails for the innovations, right? We cannot to say the regulation does not work. The regulation is very important to protect of our consensus. Actually, but when it comes to the imagine of the society, regulation is very difficult for them, right? And very hard to understand it. What does it mean, the regulations? We always are talking about the regulation by the experts of the regulations, but I often to talk with some non-experts, right? You can imagine your families, it's, oh, they don't know what the regulation means. It's very hard for them. But they have also the privacy. So we should include all these kind of the folks as the stakeholders of the society. Otherwise, the regulation is just for the experts of this conferences, right? So what I want to say through the privacy by design is it's not a talking about we should not talk about the regulation. We should talk about the regulations, but we should have other options who's not able to be involved of the regulation. So that's very significant. Otherwise, the people is missing the piece. In some cases of in the children, maybe they haven't been seen what the regulation is, what the law is, but they are understanding it step by step in accordance with the using of the device, using the services, using of kind of the encouraging the harm to some kind of things. So it's a kind of learning, but it's very important. They are one of the users. So the company has the very important responsibilities. What the kind of harm could be acceptable in society level? So that's a designing processes. What's the kind of threshold that you can be permissive? Of course, in the AI, some people just might feeling, "Whoa, AI is very scared. They don't want to use it." But other people would say, "Oh, AI is very useful. We should use it." So the thing is that we should focus is not just talking about the regulation, but talking about the societal norms. So the by design approach is now by design the regulations. Of course, it's included of the processes of regulation, but besides, we should have the talking about the societal norms. What could be acceptable? And these norms are changing on accordance with the societal actions. So that's we are working towards a different type of the stakeholder together, listening to voice from the students, what they said. They are also the one of the stakeholders. So it's very important to make a social actions. It's not just talking about the regulation. So I think that's a message to advocating of the bidesign approach. So we still remain in the progressions of the how these innovation can inclusive approach in these voices from the minority. So we should raising of the bidesign approach as well as the regulation. So yeah, that's why I'm working on this organization now.
Right. I agree with that. That's fascinating the way that you put that. One of the things, well, two things I want your thoughts on. One is about artificial intelligence in general, like all these laws that jurisdictions are passing about artificial intelligence. And then also the fact that artificial intelligence is enabling data creation and data collection that we've never imagined. So that's the reason why a lot of laws, if they're too prescriptive, it doesn't cover some of these other use cases. And I feel like they're with technology that can work very rapidly and is being used for things that could harm people. My concern is that there'll be a situation where there'll be no adequate law or regulation that can stop the harm of someone. But then in general, and I want your thoughts about this, I would rather regulate the data than the technology. So let's say AI is the rage right now, and let's say blockchain was the rage a few years ago. If you're regulating the tech, you're always going to be behind because there's going to be something new around the corner that's going to be the hot new thing. So if you think about it, in my view, about the data and about the people, then you can have something that can withstand these changes in technology. What do you think?
Yeah, that's important topic as well. As I mentioned at first of this interview, the trust is significant, which is the key drivers to drive these dialogues. Just because maybe the lot of challenges in AI space, a lot of the model is been surging now, and a lot of the countries that invest in a huge lot, and a lot of we always been discussed how AI then the AI is like useful, the AI in stock markets. A lot of context that happens. But finally, the important is how the AI can contribute it to a society. So that's the final remarks. Otherwise, the people is gonna given up to use it. So right now, it's highly expected the AI will change the world. But the AI is not the innovation. It's been a more societal integration in the stage. So the people should think about it. I was in the same context in the blockchain space. Just the surgeon of the price and a lot of the coins are there. But who is using a blockchain actually, right? Then that's very over demands. So we should think about it actually the whether the AI can create a better society for us. For example, like in some article, it's showing that AI is losing a job. A lot of the people is not needed to work on this law. The AI will be replacing it. There's some companies been showing up the cutting the people laws to replacing AI. Of course, the AI will be contributed to the processing of the businesses, but how these people can feel about it, right? So it's quite an important, not just to the portion of the innovations, but also the how we can create a better society through the AI. So that's important context. We should not be talking about the stock and price. We should be talking about how the AI can make us smile or this kind of things. It's a
Right.
very emotional discussions, but otherwise, it's the people is always against the making a more strong regulations, the strong guardrails. That's not good for the older stakeholders, right? They don't want to be regulated in final. They are just partially to give a benefit for the society. So from my context, the AI companies, regulators has to pay attention to the who's can benefit, what the society can credit through the AI, the innovation technology. So otherwise, we'll be seeing in the similar history that what I've been experiencing in the blockchain space right now.
Yeah, I agree with that completely. So, if it were the world, according to you, Kohai, and we did everything you said, what would be your wish for privacy anywhere in the world, whether that be technology, human behavior, or regulation?
Yeah, I think it's a turning point, as I mentioned in my first introduction. That's a lot of the discussion. There's some people just said is AI is a hype, the innovation is a hype, but I don't believe the hype is coming because the hype is been handled by the feedbacks from the society. In case, as I mentioned, of the new innovation is harming the people, then people is against the technology. That's very simple structures. So then we should think about is how this innovation, the technology can contribute to society and involves in the different stakeholders can contribute it to this work. So I always been a proposing of the multi-stakeholder approach since that established these organizations, then as much as the stakeholders can involve to the dialogue, I think it's a very important, not just only for us, but also this kind of the grassroots approach is involved in the different countries, the different regions to work on that. So maybe it's a good time and then to reconsider whether the innovation can change or innovation might be disrupting of ourselves. So yeah, that's very crucial to have the different sharing the values together with this kind of the interviews or opportunities and different generations, different genders, different nationalities. So yeah, it's a good timing to discuss about it together.
Yeah. This is an interesting time to have those discussions about, as you say, community, society, culture, the way that we can work together, collaborate, share, not harm people. That's always my concern. So I agree with that. And I share your wish for sure. Well, thank you so much for
Thank
being
you.
on the show. This is a pleasure. Thank you for joining from Japan. I know it's early in the morning. But yeah, it's so great to connect with you, and I'm happy to have you as part of the privacy community globally.
Yeah, David, thank you for running this quite a very interesting channel. I'm always happy to contribute in that sense and sharing the value to the folks within this industry together. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. We'll find other ways we can collaborate together in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. Bye.